I was thinking it was going to be more
not good friends.
A 51st date situation.
I love that movie.
Oh no, Penny. All right, welcome to another
episode. The Mighty Bosstones.
A new episode of the Divinely Uninspired Podcast.
We're doing some ska.
And that was the OC Supertones. Oh. It was a good guess.
I love the OC Supertones.
And
they were the Christian Mighty Bosstones.
That's what I was going to say. We're going to be talking about hope later in this episode, and there's just a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I thought this would be the year of ska music, bringing it back, 2025.
I saw them in concert a couple times.
I apologize because it turns out there's not a lot of ska music that I enjoy, and the OC Supertones did not make the list because...
Well, I was also in middle school, so...
Well, where'd you see him?
I saw them once at a church somewhere in Louisville, and then they played... What was the place downtown? Louisville Gardens? Is that...
Yeah.
Yeah, they played there one time.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. I saw DC Talk there, too.
Oh.
And the Audio Adrenaline and the Newsboys.
Oh, that's a good concert.
Yeah. It was great.
So when we were in high, we saw Audio Adrenaline.
Yeah.
And bought the CD and went home and went, oh, they're much better in person than they are recorded. So much like we are on this podcast, if you talk to us one-on-one, you'd love it.
This might be a repeat. Did I ever tell you about the first time I saw DC Talk? And I realized that Toby Mac was the rapper and not the other guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember being like, man, I just really assumed that was not going to be the rapper.
Well, that's what you do when you assume, Jeremy. That's no good.
Yeah.
I've seen Toby Mac in person too. He was at the waterfront doing something. Yeah. Well, we're really on fire this week. Jeremy came in hot, and I didn't know what to do with it. No, the Mighty Bosstones have like 2 good songs, it turns out.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of really. I think I had a lot of friends that listened to ska in high school, and I wasn't really a big fan, and I might have been right. I don't know. Some real big fish, not too bad. But what about you, Penny?
Yeah. To this conversation.
Yeah. All right.
Did you listen to ska?
No.
What was it? Wasn't No Doubt? They were kind of ska-ish, right?
A little bit.
A little
Gwen
bit.
Stefani.
I'm really. Does anybody else feel bad for the rest of that band?
Yeah.
Is this something that we've talked about on the podcast before?
No.
I feel like.
About No Doubt?
Yeah.
There was her, and there was the guy that had like the big sideburns and dark hair. I don't know his name, but I know he like went on to do something else. But outside of that, I couldn't tell you another
Wasn't
person
she
in the band.
with him at one point?
I think she was dating him, and then she went with Galvin, whatever.
Gavin
from Rostone. What from Bush?
Not Rostone.
Whatever his name is.
Mighty Rostone?
From Bush.
Yeah, Gavin
Rostone. She went from him to Blake Shelton. It's quite a spectrum.
And that's been Zennial relationship talk from celebrities.
Pretty much.
Goodness, what are we doing? All right, so we are back. It has been quite a bit of time since we've been here, but it is the first podcast of 2025.
Yay for 2025.
And
it's going to be a great year.
That's the hope we've got. All right, so we were gone. We actually had a week off of church. A week ago, we had a big snowstorm. And I know that we were stuck in the house for a few days. And Jeremy, you talked about what you did, fun stuff at the house with no power.
Yeah, we played games. We played Phase 10. We played Uno. We played Taco Cat Burrito. Is that a game?
So
and we played Attacking Kittens too.
Exploding
Kittens.
I was listening to the replay of church, and you said we were playing Taco Exploding Kittens, and I was like, I think that's 2 different games that have become.
Actually, I think that there's
a Taco Cat and
there's a Taco Cat
Kittens.
Burrito, and then there's a game called Exploding Kittens.
I know, but they didn't do one that was together.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't know.
I don't really peruse the game aisle very much.
Well, there's Taco Cat.
Target.
There's a throwing burrito. Is Taco Cat Burrito is one game?
I think
no,
so.
Throw Burrito is a game.
I'm pretty sure there's a game of burritos. We also got a sriracha game, but that one was nobody liked that one.
Yeah.
It's like looks like a sriracha box.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it's a game in it, but it was not very much fun.
Huh.
Oh, well, take that, Sriracha. There goes our sponsor this week.
Yeah.
But what'd you do, Penny? While you were in the... Did you lose power?
No, we
Oh,
didn't.
nice.
She lives in Mount Washington.
They
They don't lose power over there.
We didn't lose any power. We didn't do much of anything. I did read a lot.
Yeah.
And
anything good that you can share on a Christian podcast?
Probably not.
That you read or watched?
Probably both.
A lot of Fabio covers of novels that
Yeah.
on a horse with his shirt open.
We don't need to talk about that.
Fabio.
No.
I don't know. That's the only person I know.
No, I don't read those type of novels. I mean, mostly just, I don't know, easy reading.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Seuss? Like what?
Back of a cereal box.
Yeah.
Penny, I'm sorry.
We're done.
The way you said it.
I just do easy reading.
No, like there's a difference between like an easy book and then
2 syllables.
Do you have like a highlights magazine subscription?
All right, I think we're just going to shut it down this week because it's going to take.
they're just upset that I had
Reader's Digest. I always love Reader's Digest.
Listen, I'm jealous because we also had lost power. We had our generator turned on, and we
watched a lot of movies, and
we tried to watch something. I don't know. We watched something terrible on Netflix because the children love terrible.
We watched Black Doves. It was good.
What is
it's
that?
like a British spy show. It's got Keira Knightley.
Yeah,
it's a blast from the past, but it was pretty good.
It's not a new thing.
No, she's in it now, but she's like from Keira Knightley hasn't done anything in a long time. So
she was in the Nutcracker movie that we watched this year.
I didn't know she was in that.
Okay.
Anyway,
right. Well,
but Black Doves was good.
Okay. Well, yeah, we were stuck in the house also playing board games and interacting with the children more show than we needed to. So more show. That's rough. All right. So we were going to start out. What is your favorite game to play with the kids, Jeremy? Do you all have a family game time? When
we
you're
play
not stuck?
golf a lot. The card game golf. If you've never played that, we do that a lot. It's hard to describe. You just have to play it, but you get 6 cards and they have to match, and like aces are worth 1, kings are worth 0, jokers are -2, and you basically play a round of golf using the cards you'd have to play. But we play that one a lot. We do a lot of Phase 10, and all of my kids love charades, and I hate charades. So like
those are Jamie's children.
Yeah, so I have to like get talked into charades, but they all love it. And then we play. We like board games. We play a lot of card games, board games.
Can I tell you, we tried to play because our children requested charades.
Yeah.
And me and Nicole looked at each other like, what? Lily has never once played charades, did not know how to do it.
Yeah.
And she's talking during it. We're like, well, first of all, that's round 1. You can't talk. We played some Uno.
Yeah.
And we played some Sorry. And it was a real ugly scene.
It was rough.
We like Monopoly Deal. Have you ever played Monopoly Deal?
I don't know.
So my kids love Monopoly. Well, my son loves Monopoly, but Monopoly obviously takes your whole life. And so there's a card game called Monopoly Deal, and it's actually really fun.
Monopoly is like the Oreos of games where there's just 1,000 versions of it.
But Monopoly Deal is pretty fun.
I'm not going to ask because people aren't going to be able to figure out how to do it. So
it's a card game. It's pretty It's pretty simple, but it takes about 15-20 minutes to play, but it's fun.
Well, that's about all the time we had for one game. That's what our children like to play a game and it gets going. And if it's more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Penny, do you all do that? Is that something? That's something I always grew up thinking. Oh, people have family game nights, and we're going to sit around.
I mean, we don't really we just play them when we need to have an electronic break.
Fair enough.
Typically getting the kids out of the rooms. We play Uno a lot. Uno No Mercy. If you haven't played it, it's amazing. It gets them crying.
I saw it
and yelling. It's awesome. I love it.
I like that. Well, you know what? That's good because we were playing Sorry, and I might have told Addie we were sorry we had her at one point because she was. I taught the kids and it was bad, but they were playing Sorry, and you land on the person, you send them back home.
Yeah,
and they were saying, "Oh, sorry." And I was like, "No, you got sorry," and then shake the thing at him, and then it was my fault for getting them set up for trouble. But I was going to ask you guys: do you let the children win, Penny?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever?
No. Maybe when they were 5 or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at some point you were that person.
I like to win.
Yeah, Jeremy.
I don't let them win. I will occasionally take it easier on them, but I will never go out of my way to let them win.
That's fair. All right. Yeah, we're not people that let kids win at the house either, and I think it makes them tougher in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. No, there'll be times where I'm have moves where I'm I could be a real jerk right here, and if I'm playing an adult that should have known better, all right, tough. But with my kids, I'll be I'll make you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I never let them win.
No.
So
I went as far when Addie was little, she would go to the bathroom and I would stack the Uno deck to where we would deal it out, and I would get all draw 2s and then play one card, and it would just all 7 would just make her get cards, and she wouldn't get to play once. And it was, but so now she's real cutthroat with games. So she started playing chess, and we will play chess, and she will have no mercy on me.
Yeah.
And then we've probably played 30 times, and I might have beaten her 3.
Yeah.
And it was because I had Lily come distract her and throw her off her game unknowingly. So I was like, doesn't it feel good knowing that I'm doing everything in my power to outsmart you, and I can't do it? And so it took her years, but she figured out that was the best way to go. So, all right. Well, I'm glad you all made it safe back after all that. We're going to jump into the big stuff now. And I'm not going to put this on the computer or on the TV, but only because it's not working.
Yeah.
So,
oh no,
there was Well, I'll hold it up.
I like a visual.
Well, here you go.
Okay.
There's a laser scan that revealed a mummy, a 1,200-year-old mummy, had very intricate tattoos on it. So we don't need to talk about this mummy necessarily and how they did it with cactus needles and just the things that they had to do to get this done that, people don't have to do anymore. But what are your thoughts on tattoos, Penny? How many you got?
I have none.
Oh, man. Loser.
Actually, this is interesting. Do you have any tattoos?
It's not for air. And Jeremy?
I have none.
No, see, and none for me either.
Well, we're all really lame.
Well, now we're the cool ones. We're the counterculture now because we're the ones without tattoos. So
I'm too indecisive.
Well, so
you ever get like temporary tattoos?
I do, yeah.
You do?
Yeah,
still,
there's a brand called Inkbox that has like tattoos that you will stay on for like a couple weeks, and it actually looks like
henna
ink.
Or something like henna.
No, it's not a henna. It's like the ink is more permanent, and then you can leave them on for a couple weeks, and it looks like real ink.
The people are like, "Oh, I guess she didn't really have a tattoo."
Maybe your skin just rejuvenates real fast, and
you're like Wolverine.
Yeah. Okay.
Wolverine didn't have any tattoos, did he?
No, he couldn't.
I'll get you one.
What about a face tattoo?
Can we all get?
You need one.
Can we all get Inkbox fake tattoos?
Yeah.
We should do it.
We talked about Jelly Roll. We're big fans of Post Malone. We could all just.
And we all get to pick where the person puts it.
No.
Yep. I think it's only fair. We draw out of a hat. You get it's like Christmas time. You draw a
Yours
cup,
would go on the top of your head.
Would it?
Yeah. Put it right there.
Can we, as a church, would this be a good fundraiser? If we can get a certain amount of money raised, Jeremy will get a temporary face tattoo from Inkbox, and it can be whatever y'all want within reason.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'll build us a new building.
I mean, we get a new building. I'll get a real face tattoo. I'll just be like,
everybody will love to look at that on Sunday morning.
Yeah. What would you get?
Of a face tattoo or a real tattoo?
Well, if you were getting a face tattoo, what would you get?
I like what Mike Tyson's got going on. It's very,
he was a real groundbreaker with the face tattoos,
and then it just took off. It
really I don't know if he had the influence, but I think he really lucked out that it really kind of popped off after that, because he was the first face tattoo that I remember that wasn't like some kind of cartel.
I think I get like a permanent unibrow, like just get it tattooed. So I'll just stick together.
What do you, Penny? If you could get a tattoo,
what would just be like? No, it's a tattoo.
I really like that actually.
You would get a permanent unibrow too.
No, but that's pretty great.
For Jim.
I like it.
I don't have a unibrow. It's just a tattoo.
What's the guy from UK who had
Anthony Davis?
What's his number?
Was he three or something?
You could get a permanent, little 3 under it, and because you're a big UK fan, so
exactly.
That'd be good. If you could get if you had to get a face tattoo. No, don't say no. If you had to, hypothetical.
I mean, I guess I would. Can I say get my eyebrows done? Could you do that? A tattooed eyebrows or something? Because I wouldn't want a permanent. I would rather have. I would rather have really awkward eyebrows than have any sort of face tattoo.
Huh? What about a Taylor Swift tattoo? Something like that on your.
Is that going to get me into a concert or something?
It might. She might. You could do it. You could probably put it on Instagram.
Hey, I might get. That's actually really interesting for someone you really wanted to see in concert or do something. Would you get a tattoo for it?
Well, what a wonderful segue into the next thing we're talking about. If you had to guess what the top, pardon me, that was a big cough. We'll cut it out. The top inspirational or the top rock bands that inspire tattoos worldwide. What if you had to guess? So when people look up, I want a tattoo that is this band.
Rolling Stones.
Kiss.
And neither in the top 10.
Wow, we're old.
Well, are these modern bands or throughout history?
There's a couple modern. There's
Avenged
one.
Sevenfold.
Well, that would really be something.
Okay, first of all, I know somebody with that tattoo.
An Avenged Sevenfold.
Do you really?
Mm-hmm. She's got the band on her arm, all
faces?
The pictures, all their faces.
You know what would be a good face tattoo before we go this is if you get green and make you just have snot constant running out your nose. It's just and you just keep wiping it, but it never goes away. That would be a great tattoo. So
okay. All right. Well, Pink Floyd is number 1.
Pink Floyd.
What is that?
Talk amongst yourself.
I know what it is, but what kind of tattoo would it be?
You don't know what Pink Floyd is?
No, I know, but what tattoo isn't what would you get? I would think
a wall.
That's silly.
Their famous song's called The Wall.
Okay, so what are the other ones?
I'm guessing.
A prism? Probably like prisms.
Oh.
They have prisms and rainbows.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Dark Side of the Moon, is that what it's called?
And the one with the horse too, or was that Led Zeppelin had like horses on one of their albums?
Here's the thing, I couldn't tell you very much of Pink Floyd other than that logo. So
with Led Zeppelin, was there Led Zeppelin on there?
What about Taylor Swift?
Nope.
Metallica?
Metallica, number 4.
Oh.
All right, it's Tool, number 10.
Oh, that makes sense.
Iron Maiden, 21 Pilots.
These are, okay. All right.
Slipknot.
Okay.
Linkin Park, Nirvana, Metallica.
What about Insane Clown Posse?
Rammstein.
That's what your tattoo would be. Just get
think about it. Insane Clown Posse and Kiss are the two bands that have their faces like
they don't need the
up.
tattoos because they.
But as a fan, you might get like a permanent tattoo.
Did you see that guy that had the permanent Juggalo tattoo on his face? Oh, it was bad. He got the makeup permanently done, and then I think regretted it immediately.
Jeremy, I don't think this is like specifically for face tattoos. I think it's overall.
Oh, he said face tattoos, right? Oh, never mind then. I thought we were talking about face tattoos.
I apologize. No.
Okay.
She was saying
just tattoos. Okay, that changes the whole conversation.
Well, she was talking about a Taylor Swift tattoo. Yeah. And so we just moved on.
I was thinking of bands that would have like face things the whole time.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, well, that makes much more sense now. Pink Floyd, on your lower back, the prism with the rainbow. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. So you would get a Taylor Swift tattoo if you thought you were going to start getting into concerts for free?
I mean, maybe like a really small one, sure.
Okay, so you're
on
not
your face?
Taylor Swift
on your face.
No,
if you get it on your body, she could care less because there's 18 million dumb girls that have that tattoo.
Okay,
they've got like a 31 or whatever, 17.
I wouldn't
or
put
like
a tattoo on my face for Taylor Swift.
If you did a Taylor Swift face tattoo, that's taking it to a whole nother level.
Like if you got her face tattooed on your face, like a full face, so then you look like Taylor Swift.
That would be amazing.
Well,
or
guys,
if
thanks.
what if it was the kind that are like glow or they're the infrared or something where you only see them in the dark, and then when you turn the lights off, you look like Taylor Swift, but in the daytime you look like Penny.
Awesome.
That would be something. So.
Yes. Oh.
All right. Well, yes, Taylor Swift doesn't want you to get her anything tattooed on your body, and Pink Floyd doesn't care because they're not a band anymore.
If you were going to do a face tattoo, you could do the glow in the dark tattoos. So
that's what I said.
He just said that.
No, but like do like a mustache.
So
you turn the lights off.
That would be really funny.
You just have a mustache all of a sudden.
I like that idea. All right.
Jeremy's funny today. Yeah. That's he's on it.
Well, all right. So before we get into the rest of it, what brought that up? I was looking at a thing came up with Billboard with. We did it last week. We did our 2024, the last episode 2024 recap, and we missed some of these things. If you had to guess what the top tour was last year of any genre of music or
it's
comedy,
Taylor Swift.
I think it was Beyonce.
Didn't she get like $1 billion? I thought she made like $2 billion last year or something. Taylor Swift. I thought it was like the number one like all time.
I mean, it would make sense that it would be her, but I think that it's Beyonce.
I'm gonna guess Taylor Swift.
Beyonce.
The number one grossing tour last year was Coldplay.
Oh, I do love Coldplay.
International. I bet they've got a big international following.
I would love to see them in concert.
They made $400.9 million. The gross for their 51 shows.
Yes, but Taylor Swift is international too. So,
is she?
What did she make? Is that on there?
Well, let's see.
I thought they said that her last tour was like the highest grossing tour of all time. It was like $1 billion or something. Wow. Something stupid.
I think maybe she made that much money for the like all the other stuff, but this was just ticket sales.
Yeah,
not like merch. Bruce Springsteen was number 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
Does Garth Brooks still tour?
Rolling Stones was 3.
I bet Garth Brooks would do real well.
I think he's getting canceled.
Oh, did he? Wow.
I don't know. I've heard that. I haven't looked.
Never mind. Metallica was in there.
Metallica.
Green Day was top.
Green Day?
Depeche Mode.
Still. Are you like on a browser from 1998?
Green Day made $132 million in ticket sales
on Green Day
on 36 shows. So
what about Blink-182? Didn't they
number
start
10
touring again?
They were the top number 10. Yeah,
I want to go see them too.
They were great in 2002 when I saw them. So when the tickets were $40, I can't imagine how expensive and how bad it would be.
That's crazy.
So I bring that up because the thing that first brought it to my attention was that. Nate Bargatze. So they gave a list of the top touring comedians and how much money they made. Would you like to guess what your buddy Nate made in gross ticket sales?
It's a crazy. I mean, he sells out a whole arena, so
and
it's a nuts.
all genre rank. He was the 37th highest grossing tour last year. But you want to guess the numbers?
How much he made?
Like how much ticket sales?
200 million.
Goodness. All right.
I'm going to go like I thought you said 50 million.
It was, $82 million in tickets.
Well, I didn't know. I know, but I was grossing was 500 million or whatever.
That's that was total.
So he made how much grossing?
$82 million just from touring is just wild for a comedian, I think. So
yeah. I mean, he's selling out whole arenas.
If you had to guess, number 2, if someone said, if you can't guess this, you have to get a face tattoo, who's the second top grossing comedian?
Second top would be, number 1 was Nate Bargatze.
Mm-hmm. You're stalling.
I would say.
Is it a female?
No.
I would say Jim Gaffigan.
Listen, we said comedian. We said funny people.
I would say Jim Gaffigan, or I would say Tom Segura.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Matt Rife.
Oh, I love him.
I forgot about him.
I love Matt Rife.
He got baptized recently.
Yeah, he's funny.
Is he funny?
No, he is not. Did you watch his stand-up? It was the worst.
Most of what I saw wasn't great.
I watch a lot of his stand-up on TikTok, so if that gets taken away on Sunday, I'm done for.
Here's what I think will happen with him. I think his clips are funny because he's like interacting with the...
Yeah, that's probably why.
Once they gave him a special where he had to actually like entertain you for an hour straight, it was awful.
Was it?
20 minutes in, I was like, this is probably some of the worst stand-up I've ever seen.
$57 million.
And I've seen some bad stand-up.
So, okay, here's the thing with you all. You all are similar childhoods, I guess, to me. Do you ever upset that you weren't poor enough to be creative as a child, that you're famous now, or like weren't weird enough looking?
I don't even know how to answer that.
I feel like we're all kind of like middle of the road.
Yeah.
No one's like...
So we don't have some crazy story.
None of us are like super, super hot or super, super rich or super, super poor or super, super weird looking. Like we're all kind of just middle of the road to the part where art doesn't come very easy to us. But I feel like some of these people, they had such a hard childhood. Comedy is easy because you're just...
I think that is the appeal. I do think he's really funny. And like, obviously I've been watching him since like you only had CDs out with Nate.
Who are we talking about?
Nate Bargatze.
Okay.
But I think that's the appeal of him, is he feels like one of us. Like, does that make sense?
He's
like
every man. Yeah.
He's not like got some crazy story. He's not like... He's built like us. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he's just a dude. And I think that's like what's funny about him is like he's telling stories that we, not even growing up in church, although he has a lot of like church jokes and stuff, but like he just is relatable as just like, I mean, one of his is called The Greatest Average American, because that's like what, I mean, if you didn't know he was this world famous stand-up comedian, you would run into him and be like, there's nothing special about that guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably pretty true. So
I guess if you're listening, reach out to Jeremy. Apparently, he's your biggest fan.
Oh, me and we
Nate Bargatze.
Me and Nate Bargatze.
Listen, he's like Jeremy's Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
I've been listening to him since,
I tell you all, if we went through and did like a check of how often Penny and Taylor Swift come up and Jeremy and Nate Bargatze comes up, it's a lot.
Okay.
But hey, Taylor Swift had the top 2 albums last year on the Billboard charts.
This is how I'm like Nate Bargatze. I actually have his comedy CD.
Oh, a CD.
Like, I actually have a CD of him doing stand-up comedy.
Okay.
All right. Hey, we are back for the second half of this great episode, and we are talking about this for this moderate to mediocre episode, judging by the looks I'm getting in the room.
Not for me. This has been a great episode.
All right. So there is a page, and this is where I get most of my information from online, is Instagram. Mm-hmm. And there's a guy I follow, the Holy Nope. Are y'all, either one of you familiar with that?
I've seen him before, yeah.
Okay. And it's a guy, and I have a hard time because I don't like to judge, although I'm not a perfect person. But if you want me to not take what you're saying seriously, the twisty wax mustache is like the first sign. So if you have a twisty wax mustache and I enjoy what you have to say, you should know that you have jumped up like 10 steps in how I feel, because it's hard for me to get over that. But this guy, he'll play a clip. He gets his Bible and he goes to the front door and says, all right, I'm going to go worship. And then they play some clip that's just usually asinine. Yeah. And then he's, nope, and he just goes and sits back in the house. But one of them, sometimes there's a good one, actually. There was a good one this week where a guy was on Joe Rogan kind of setting the record straight about Jesus. And he was like, oh, all right. But there was one, and it was these 3 pastors at a church that I didn't get the name of. And they were making a pouty face and making some reel about, they were trying to announce something to the congregation, and they just very sullenly just said that they just are just out of hope as a church and as Christians. They just didn't know what to do. And the look on the guy's face was the correct look, because that's kind of one of the big tenets of Christianity, is that you have hope, and it's not just the world that you're, it's eternity. But if your pastors are on Instagram talking about no hope, that seems like a thing. But then, as 2025 is off to gangbusters with, Los Angeles on fire and all kinds of things going on. What do you think about having hope? Because it seems like, do you have hope in the future, Jeremy, after I set it up with saying you need to?
I think you have to. I think that it's hard at times, but I think that you have to believe that things are going to... One of the things I say a lot is you have... If you start to live your life believing your best days are behind you, it's like a whole new world of despair, because now you're just like, I have nothing to live for, towards, or whatever. So, I actually do believe that, even in hard things, you have to believe that something better can come out of that, or that something better can happen,
Well, that was the second... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I think, so C.S. Lewis talked about this a long time ago, and N.T. Wright piggybacked on it in some of his writings, but we always think that, I know everything is tragic in L.A. and there's all kinds of other stuff, but, it's because we're living in it now. Mm-hmm. So we always think it's the worst time now, but historically it's just not accurate. You know what I'm saying? Every generation thinks it's the worst time ever, And so I think that's part of it too, is people go through life and it's hard. And I think sometimes too, it's also because I'm the one dealing with it, now I don't have any hope. But then it's if someone else was going through the same thing and they were looking for encouragement, you'd be like, oh, you just got to keep believing and holding on. And and sometimes I'm people give the advice you would give your friend. You know what I'm saying? You have to believe that for yourself, that hey, something good could come out of this, even if it doesn't look like it sometimes.
Well, the second part of the thing that brought it up to talk about this week was, according to studies, I'm a big nostalgia person, and we've talked about the different things on here, and we just talked about board games and card games and things we played as a kid, and love of theme parks and things like that as a child. And I'm real big on things of the past, but anywhere between 10 and 20% of people think that nothing good will happen to them anymore in their life. That's studies show that. So there are up to 20%, up 1 in 5 people think that it doesn't matter, that nothing matters anymore, that their best times are behind them, and that, sorry to bring down the room, but there's just no hope for even a good life.
The other side of that too would be self-fulfilling prophecy, which is a term of a simple way of saying it: if you believe something, you'll prove yourself right 100% of the time. So self-fulfilling prophecy is that belief of there's nothing good, there's nothing great, there's this is awful, this is terrible. And if you have that mindset, self-fulfilling prophecy will prove every right time. All because, I say it this way: there's a lot of just crap. And so if you're just always looking for crap, you're always going to find crap. But if you're looking for something good, you can still find a lot of good in the world too. And even in your life, it's just which one are you looking for? Because if you're waking up every day and you're already in a bad mood, you're already being moody about this, or you're frustrated with this or whatever, you're just going to find more of that stuff throughout the day. And the other side of it is something that on a good day wouldn't bother you, now it's going to bother you. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a bad day, and so something I would have just walked past or not even brought up or get to me, all of a sudden now seems like the biggest deal in the world. Yeah. So, a lot of that's just mindsets of things. Now, I'm not saying people don't go through hard things, but a lot of it is just mindsets, I think, sometimes.
Have you been reading The Secret?
No, I've not read The Secret.
Didn't they make that into a movie?
They make a lot of stuff that they shouldn't into movies. But that's, what do you think about that, about just being out of hope? And
I think we've done it to ourselves, just because I feel we have the world's problems at our fingertips. Everything, every bit of problem within the world, we're aware of it. And I don't know, 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case, right? So haven't we sort of just set ourselves up for it to feel the way that we feel?
Yeah. Well, I think nostalgia, you talk about that. I think one of the things about nostalgia is sometimes it wasn't as great as we remember. We remember it because we're looking to hold on to that stuff. But sometimes it's also I loved, we talked earlier about board game. I loved, on Friday nights, my dad would come home. He'd bring us the Little Caesars pizza, 2 pizzas, and the white paper. I don't know if you guys remember that. Came in the big box. We'd watch TGIF, as we talked about before, and we'd play games at the end of the night.
It sounds nice.
It was nice. But then there were also a lot of times that I'd be as a kid being like, is this what we're doing again? Or like, I wish I could spend the night with a friend tonight. Or like, I'd hear, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like, yeah, there's nostalgia and it's great memories, but I also remember, you know, back then on a Friday night, sometimes being like, is there nothing else for me to do? Do you know what I'm saying? And like, so I'm not saying like good or bad. I'm just saying sometimes nostalgia blinds the fact that it wasn't always as great as, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would agree with that. Because you tend to try to hold on to the good memories. And I think that people, I mean, I'm not one of the 10 to 20% that think nothing good will ever happen again. But I thought that was an alarming statistic, if nothing else, that at least at the very minimum of that 1 in 10 people walking around is just like, this is today, maybe like in Office Space, this is the worst day of my life. And it's not going to get any better. It's just going downhill. Each day is going to be worse and worse. So,
but I also think too, it also is what season you're in. We talk about seasons a lot. Like there have been seasons where I'm like, I can't imagine anything being worse than this. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then you get through that season and of course you got to wait for the next thing to pop up. But you know, sometimes the next thing isn't as bad or like you've made it through, you've persevered. So I would be interested, like the people that they surveyed, like, you know, is it just you feel like that right now or how long have you felt like that? You know, or like, you know, because I think there's days that if you went up to anybody and you were like, hey, how's life going? They'd be like, well, it's not great, you know, but that might have been just that day or that week or that month or, you know, so.
Well, I think that's what I've tried to start in the last few months, trying to look at like, if I look back in 10 years at what's going on now, I'll go, this is actually pretty great. Instead of just worrying about day-to-day issues that we have and think maybe like, because I'm on these dumb things on Instagram, you get the post and it's like, this was the, you know, one time we turned off the PlayStation or the Nintendo 64 for the last time and we didn't know it and we logged out of whatever and we never knew because we grew up and thinking, what are we doing now that in 10 years we'll go, man, we're really living it up. So
Instagram loves to do that. It also, I know what it says things about your kids too. Like, when's the last time you picked up your kid and held your kid? Like stuff like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah. I mean, there's one that's, the guy was singing, do you want to build a snowman to his teenage daughter? And she's like grown up down on her phone. And he's like, we used to be best buddies. And it's just so sad. And I'm like, what are we doing?
I have our curriculum here at church, Orange, has a Parent Q app. Mm-hmm. And like, it's a good resource, but the one thing that it does send me constantly is how many days I have left with my children until they turn 18.
Wow. Yeah.
It is ridiculous. It's like
out of here with that.
It's so terrible. And it makes me feel so guilty.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not helpful.
No, that's the worst thing I can think of.
I know. Exactly. I'm like, it's a countdown just to make me feel bad about like yelling at my kid last week or
there's a thing that's like with the travel agent stuff that I see people do, and it's you only get 18 summers with your kids.
I think about that a lot.
And I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. If everybody's still listening, I apologize for even saying it out loud. It's the worst thing that I can possibly think of. So it's like reverse nostalgia where you're mad at the future.
But I think that goes back to the bigger point is that like we're sad about that because we have children. Mm-hmm. But I would also argue if you were to go to my parents and ask probably when our relationship was best, not as a child, they would probably say in my adult years because like your relationship changes with them, you know? And so it's like, but like one day my relationship with my kids will change, even though I'm going to miss and mourn when they were kids. Like one day it's going to be different. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think that's like the hard part is reminding yourself of, no, that's sad that we only have, you know, this many more, you know, I mean, like my kid's favorite thing to do. So Elliot's in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. So he rides to school every day with Jamie. And every day he's like, you know, next year I'm not gonna be riding to school with you. Like every day, like,
what's wrong with him?
Yeah, exactly. He thinks it's hilarious. But like, you know, but then I'm also like, but like there'll be a new season, new chapter in lives and, you know, it'll be fun.
I wouldn't even say that to Addie because she'll be in high school next year. And if I were like, well, this is the last Christmas break of middle school or, you know, next year it'll be different because we'll be taking you to high school early. And then, you know, this will all be changed. She'd think about it every morning because she's like me and we would just be weeping all the way to school instead of singing Taylor Swift like we did this morning.
I think the other side of it is one of the conversations I think that is interesting about like Christianity is our faith is rooted in this idea, the worst possible thing could happen. So then what? Mm-hmm. You know, like Jesus dying on the cross in that moment to everybody that's put their trust and faith in Jesus is the worst possible thing that could happen. So then what? And like, I like that idea because it's like, I think that sometimes the question is, so the worst possible thing could happen. Like, that's reality. Like, the worst possible thing could happen to all of us. Like, whatever you're thinking the worst possible scenario is could happen. So then what? Like, what do you do? What do you do next? You know? And I think that that's like the beauty of it is that like the idea that then even in that moment, there was hope that came out of that, you know? And so like for us, it's like, yeah, the worst possible thing could happen, but then what? What do you do? Like, because it could happen. Like whatever. Like I mean, I've had to walk with families who've lost their children, and I cannot imagine a worst possible scenario. And I would never tell them that in the moment because it would be awful. But then, like you see them, you know, they're always going to be affected by that. But then they slowly, piece by piece, start to rebuild their lives. You know, and so it's like, yeah, that could happen to all of us, any of us. But if you just live in that place of like always being fearful of the worst possible thing, well, first of all, you have to be a reality. It could actually happen. So then what? And if you can't, you know, I don't know. So that's just like one of those things you have to process.
Well, so. I've been looking at that. Like, I don't know, because you always think of like, oh, well, I mean, I believe Jesus. I believe God's watching over us, and you know, all that. And no matter what happens, we've still kind of got that card to play, you know, like it could always be worse, but I've got that to look forward to. But then I see something like, and I don't want to put everybody's business out in the streets, but like the Welker family and what they're going through. We have a family that in our community that just had a terrible car accident, and just the extent of the damage to their family and their own bodies and what they're going through. And to see like the positive spin they're putting on it, like publicly on Facebook, and just how they're just grateful for what they've got and hopeful for tomorrow. And I think, is that me? Like, could I do that? And I'm not sure.
I don't think you could now on this side of it, because that's the fear part of it.
Yeah.
I think that once it happens, then you have to, I think too, here's the thing. Some of the people that I talk to that go through some of the worst possible things that you could imagine, their perspective on the other side of going through it is different than the perspective going through it. Or when they were about to go through it. Like the fear of going through it is sometimes greater than the actual going through
it. Like worrying about it happening.
Yeah. And I think that, not that when they come out on the other side, it's not awful and it wasn't brutal and it's not still pain and heartache, but sometimes the fear of it is actually greater than the actual going through it. Does that make sense? And so I think that's part of it too, is once you've gone through it, it's like, okay, that happened. So what are we going to do? So you can just freeze and just hope it all works out, which it never does for anybody. Or like what their, mindset now is, even though it's hard for us to fathom, is like, we're just grateful to have another day.
Well, I always think something like that. Like, what if we could like get that mindset without the tragedy? Like, why do we have to experience something life altering before you're like, well, today's great. I'm excited to be up. And I mean, it could all be taken away. Why do we just go, I had to go to work today. I had to get up and do whatever. So any thoughts on that there?
That's how I think in the morning. Got to go to work.
Ugh.
That's how you think?
No, I was clearly joking.
You couldn't see her face because it's not a video podcast. But
your email you sent me this morning was real positive.
Oh boy.
So
all right. Well,
anyways.
Yeah, off camera, we've had some of the saddest tech talk I've ever experienced, but we're not going to get into that. That's a whole nother episode. So, all right. Well, then I had one other question then about this and your opinions on it, because we've talked about maybe tiptoed around this kind of thing in the past. Do you think any of the feelings that a lot of people get, especially people our age, is because, like when we were kids, especially us that were like churched kids, it kind of, I know the church I grew up in, and I always say it, I owe them a lot for, how I was raised and like the foundation they put underneath me, but that it was kind of like, well, it's just going to get worse from here until Jesus is coming back. Like it's going to be a slow descent into hell for the world. And then, like, I mean, is there anything you think to that people are kind of like, yeah, well, we're just kind of, we're not trying to make things better because you can't make things better.
I think that I think there's two schools of thought. So I think the first one is there's a lot of people that go into Christianity, and once they become followers of Jesus, they're just waiting to die, which is also another sign of despair.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is I always try to be honest with people when Jesus is about to leave the earth. So again, go back to worst case scenario. They've just been told this guy they've been following from 3 years is about to leave them. That's what he starts with. And then he's like, it's going to get even worse because I'm going to die. And then you all might die, you know. And then he's like, but I've told you these things so that you could have, you know, it's like, Jesus, this is not a good motivational speech. Yeah. I mean, like, it's actually, if we were going to rate it, a pretty bad one. But like, Jesus is like brutally honest. And I try to make people, it's going to be hard and it may not always get better.
Yeah.
You know, and are you okay with that? Because if you just want to live in la la land and pretend like it's all going to get better, I mean, you can do that, but like, it's not just going to happen. And I think it goes to your second part of like, we could produce a better world. You know, I mean, I think that part of, you know, Jesus' idea is to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. See, we grew up in a model where we're going to go someday somewhere. And when you study Jesus' teaching, he's all about bringing it here. I mean, Jesus doesn't even talk about the afterlife very much at all. I mean, there's a couple of little things, but not much. His whole thing is about bringing it here, making, even though it's hard, trying to make life better here, you know? And I think that is something that was lost on us as kids, because I think we were under the assumption that one day I'm just going to die and go somewhere and it's all going to be okay. But we weren't warned about how crappy it might actually be until we get to that point, you know, and how the real mark of understanding Jesus, but I think being a better human is what you do in that meantime. You know, what do you do with your life? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that if we had more people that were trying to do things, not just say things to help people, I think that's the other side of it, is we live in a very selfish world. And so it's like, if you're lacking hope that things could get better, I mean, all you got to do, and I know I joke about it, all you got to do is get on social media. And it's like, you'll find it not getting better. You'll find more selfish people. You'll find, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, and I think that's, again, goes back into you'll find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, to that point, the algorithm, what we talked about earlier, the things it's sharing with me, I've stopped watching anything that looks like that, and I swipe through it as quick as possible. And I'm just trying to get dogs on mine now.
Yeah, there's some sad dog stuff out there too.
Well, listen, if Sarah McLachlan's playing, we're keeping on moving because that's not going to work. So, what is there? So I've brought this up in the past, but like when you talk about things like this Sunday, the 10 Commandments, but then all the other commandments that no one listens to, all the other laws and stuff like that wasn't a concept until I was an adult because no one spoke about those things. It was like, these are the big 10, but everything else is fine. Is there a resource other than the Bible that's good for picking up things like that? Because I feel like, and we don't like to get political on here, but I feel like that is, especially the 10 Commandments has been a social point, hot button, at least for the past 10 years, if not longer than that, where people who they're I want to say pandering to a Christian audience are like, we are putting the 10 Commandments up here and we're putting it up there and we're doing all that stuff. We're not going to follow any of it, but we're putting it up and forget anything else Jesus said, or anything Jesus said, because he didn't say the 10 Commandments, but any other laws, we're looking at this kind of thing. But as a child, it was like, yeah, that's right, because that was the kind of church I grew up in. It was like, those people know the 10 Commandments. That's who I like. But then as an adult, you're like, oh, the 10 Commandments are awesome. But contextually, why are we, you know, are there like...
I mean, so here, okay, so resources, I can come up with some off the top of my head. I'm just trying to think of all the books I've read. And like, you get pieces here and there, but like, so the Bible's a good place to start.
Like, other than the Bible, because...
But here's what I'm saying. This is, people don't understand the Bible. So if you go to Acts chapter 15,
okay,
Paul goes to Jerusalem and gets in an argument with all of the other apostles and church leaders, basically saying, we should not put on the Gentiles these laws that none of us can even keep. So this is Paul going to bat for all Gentiles, which is including us, right? So Paul is going to bat and saying, listen, we can't even follow the 10 Commandments, much less the other 613. So we shouldn't make these Gentiles, like, we should make it easy for them to come to God, right? So the reason I say that is the irony of like what you just said, of people making this big deal about, well, the 10 Commandments aren't on the school walls or on that. And the 10 Commandments are great. The 10 Commandments, if you break them down, are all about making true and right relationship with God and true and right relationship with each other, which is what the goal is.
Yeah, there's not, just to go back, there's nothing wrong with the 10 Commandments. But what
I'm saying is like the irony of that is like, you know, you say outside the Bible, but even in the Bible itself, there's a guy like putting his name and his line, you know, his life on the line basically arguing, yeah, we had these things, but now we have something new, so we don't even need to not worry about them because they are good. But like, does that make sense? Like it's that idea that like even in the text itself, there's a guy. It's like Paul would not be pro. Let's put the 10 Commandments up everywhere. Like.
Well, so here's the thing that I run into, and Penny, you can leave if you want to, because I'm just going to dig into
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm not putting down you at all. I was just saying I'm going to turn this way, and
I'll just get on Instagram.
That's fine. Yeah, no, nothing sad. All right, so when like you have been to a Bible school.
Multiple,
college,
but yes.
Many Bible schools. I know, Jeremy, you've been to all of them?
I've been to a few.
So when you start explaining things like that, it's like, yeah, but when the average person, I would say, and I mean, growing up in a church, you read the Bible and it's like, this is written so difficultly. Is there an easier version of this? Because we talk about this at our house. It's like, read the Bible and you're like, great. And you start reading it and you're like, I'm just lost.
I think a quick resource that comes to mind is Tim Mackey, The Bible Project. Anything Tim Mackey does, I would highly recommend. So
how you spell that last name?
Mackie, right?
It's just
Tim
the
Mackey.
Bible Project.
Yeah, but he has a lot of stuff.
Oh, the Bible Project.
Yeah, the Bible Project. Okay. But they have a podcast. They have YouTube channels. They do like these not cartoonish, but like cartoonish, basically like drawings. So they're easy to follow. They're not made for kids; they're made for adults. But like he breaks down things really simply. He's just a resource I think of because the Bible Project is basically made. It's gonna sound awful, but remember like those books? It's like the yellow cover books, like the taxes for dummies or whatever. He's not taking it and saying anybody's a dummy, but he's taking that approach of like, I'm just going to make this as simple as possible to understand. So there's like illustrations and drawings, and like I said, it's not cartoons, but it's like these things. So they have a podcast. I'm a big Peter Enns fan. So the Bible for Normal People is a big thing for me. I still listen to, but I would say that it's not low hanging fruit because Tim Mackey is super smart, and I've actually studied under him before, but like, his whole Bible Project and a lot of his other stuff is really, really good.
Well, so I mean, I think I've made this,
and they're short videos. Like, I mean, you're talking each 5, 6, 7 minute, and he's longer stuff too. But just quick synopsis, 5, 6, 7 minute videos. So,
I think this is a old joke, but that like if your resolution was to start reading the Bible every day, and you get one of those 365 Bibles, this is about the time you're.
Yeah, you'll give up on the Old Testament real quick.
You're like, once you get out of Exodus, you're like, this is wild, and I don't know. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, it's still Easter. This is exciting. These stories.
And I think that's like Leviticus gets this bad reputation.
Not Easter. That was incorrect, so don't write in.
Well, like, I mean, that's what's fascinating is Leviticus and Numbers, like, going through seminary and stuff like that, like, and hearing some other people use those, like, if you just picked it up and read it, you'd be like, this is awful.
Yeah.
But then when you understand some of the contextual things about it, Leviticus becomes like one of the most fascinating books in the Bible, like just because it's so ancient, so it's hard to imagine. Yeah, but like there's some fascinating things in there. You just got to understand the context of a lot of that stuff, which not everybody gets. Which is why places like the Bible Project are really good to come alongside that.
Well, I think the Bible in context is an excellent play. Like if that's a good way to look for things, saying a Bible in context, because when it's written in scripture form with the numbers all added to it.
And all that stuff was added.
Yes, but all that stuff makes it's easy to reference. Yeah. Impossible to find meaning. Well, not impossible, but it's hard to, you're not reading, whatever we read over
and it's
Snowbreak.
It's not in chronological order either.
Well,
that's the other thing.
Well, what are you talking about? Adam and Eve until the end of time. No, that's like how the Bible was written.
No, it's not. Well, I mean, that may have how we got it, but that's not.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I understand.
But I mean, so people don't know that. People don't know the Bible's not in chronological order.
And that was a concept that was not brought up until I was in college and, at different churches. And wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then you start going, well, yeah, I guess Adam didn't put pen to paper and this is what's happening right now. Like all that stuff. There's so much going on, especially Old Testament, that just is.
I think some people, and I talk about this in my Wisdom Bible class, I think some people wrestle with like, they think of the Bible being written the way stories get written now. So like the LA wildfires, there are reporters on site recording things. There's people writing things down. There's video. That's not how the Bible or any ancient document worked. Like, what I'm saying? It might be hundreds of years, if not longer, before some of these things ever got recorded. So you're based a lot on oral traditions and stories. And here's the thing. That sounds so foreign, and people get all up in arms and be like, well, don't you believe it's God's word? And I'm like, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is they were much more comfortable with that type of system than we are, because we live in a, going back to modern times, I want information right now that's happening right now, that making us all depressed and go crazy, because the world's jacked up as it's always been. But anyway, but in the Bible, like that would have been normal. Like that wouldn't have thought anything about it. That this story of Abraham was written by Moses potentially thousands of years, hundreds of years after the events. And we'd be like, well, how can we trust that? And they'd be like, yeah, you just do. It's okay.
Yeah.
So,
well, that is, I think, a big point. And that's what you said. There are a lot of people that I feel like would, if I were to say that, people I knew and grew up with, that would just, well, that's blasphemy. What kind of church do you go to where they say things like that? And like, does that not make sense when you really think about it? That this wasn't a newspaper headline. This was,
I mean, there are people that think that somebody was sitting there writing Adam and Eve's story.
Right.
And it's like, no, that came way later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's good. So anyway, that's Tim Mackey.
Tim Mackey's, and that's the type of stuff he talks about.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
And I think that especially if a time where, and it's easy, and it's the generic Christian answer to say, if you're looking for hope, well, you've got the book, look it up, and you start reading the Bible and you go, I don't know what's happening. You start getting to these names and
the way they treated women. It's a good thing you've been quiet down there, because I hate to have to pop out some verses on you.
I thought he was going to say pop you, so I really don't think he was going to hit you. So you got any closing arguments on that? All right, we might just, we're going to end there. But hey, thanks everybody for listening, and don't give up hope. It's really, it is kind of a tenet of the faith. So look up some of these resources if you're looking for help in the Bible. As even people like us who work at a church, it's always good to have another resource to look at. So thanks for listening, and we'll get you with another episode of the Divinely Inspired podcast next time. And today could be the best day ever. Today just might be. And I can see into the future. I could just wait and see. Are y'all ready to go?
Yeah.
I'm
jazzed. You're ready. Got my Diet Coke.
Jazzed.
Jazz hands?
Yeah.
Oh. Did you just do that? It's a good dance move.
Oh, thanks. I got some good dance moves.
I took a dance class. It was great. There's no footage of it. My dad taped over it with a NASCAR race, probably because he was embarrassed of his son. Now that I look at it.
He's like, way to go.
You erase this from history.